Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael World-B Freer, who's a senior writer at StatFactor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. And tonight, we're thrilled to be joined by an award-winning sports columnist and author, Mike Wise. More on him in just a minute. This is episode number 262, the Carmelo Anthony episode, as Melo still holds the Knicks single-game scoring record, dropping 62 points on Charlotte in 2014. With that, Bruce, why don't you introduce tonight's special guest who happens to know a thing or two about the Knicks?
Yeah, I would say so. Tonight's guest is a very special friend and colleague, Mike Wise, as you mentioned, a legendary basketball journalist, covered the league for the New York Times, the Washington Post, ESPN's The Undefeated, and other local papers on his way to the Big Apple. He's also a podcast host who worked with me at Pure Hoops Media for 3 years and had some of the most compelling guests in the hoop world in the course of doing 140 episodes of the Mike Wise Show. Mike actually conducted David Stern's final sit-down interview for the podcast in October of 2019, shortly before the commissioner fell ill with a stroke and passed away in January of 2020. But of all Mike's accolades, clearly the highlight of his career happened early on when he was Magic Johnson's personal rickshaw driver in Hawaii before Magic ever played an NBA game. Welcome, Mike. What was it like for your career to peak as a high school kid?
I often think of that myself. What was your career like to peak with the Mike Wise Pure Hopes media show? No, I think it's sad, guys, Michael Ross, that I got 140 episodes out of Bruce, and you've already gotten 260 plus. It just goes to show you that he likes you better as partners, and it's more financially rewarding for him. And that hurts, but it's true. I get it. Yeah, it was tough. 15 is a tough age to peak. A lot of people have done this. Gary Coleman peaked young. Tons of child actors over the years. You might say that Harold Baby Miner had a great season, but he never was Baby Jordan. He was just Harold Baby Miner, and he never morphed up beyond. So basically, I was sad, but kind of cool. 15 years old, man.
No, I always loved that story, Mike, and you know it's such a Mike Wise thing to have had going on in your teenage years. You know, who else but Mike Wise would have found himself in that position? Yeah,
well, I just remember, I grew up on college basketball and NBA basketball, and I was driving a rickshaw in Hawaii, and I talked him and his girlfriend into a ride, and the last day he said to me, and I literally was his caddy for a week, and I brought him to the park to play basketball with my friends, and I can still see their faces when I'm pulling up to the, Pocky Park behind the Honolulu Zoo, and they didn't believe me that Magic Johnson was going to be playing with us that day, and little Joey Dombrowski and Richard Goodheimer with their flip-flops, just their jaws hit the pavement as the ball rolled to the chain link fence. And we played for like an hour and a half, and it was the greatest day of my adolescence. And I dropped him and his wife off earlier at the Ala Moana Mall, and she said something to him, and he came back and he goes, "What's your address?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And I wrote down my address, and he goes, "I'm going to send you a pair of these shoes." And they were Magic Thriller purple with a little stencil on. It said Thriller on the side, and I'm like, "Oh my God." I'm 62 now. I'm freaking still waiting for those shoes. a little upset, just a bit.
Well, you got your memories, Mike. So hey, nobody
true.
Else can tell the story you just told. So you got that going for you. Hey, all right. So Mike, you've covered the world champion New York Knicks, as Michael World-B Freer likes to describe them, as well as the rest of the league for decades. Their run to the championship this past season was electrifying, dominant in so many ways. Can you remember any team winning so many playoff games in such improbable and borderline miraculous ways?
No. I was thinking about this the other day, Bruce and Ross and Michael. I was thinking to myself about the OG Anunoby tip in at the end, which was one of the greatest NBA playoff comeback ever, point-wise. And I thought, like there was one of these things on social media a few weeks later, and it had like the end of the Cleveland game. You remember the Cleveland game one? And I'm going, what? I forgot all about that Cleveland game. That would if that happened by itself, and Game 4 never happened, and they won. That would have been one of the great comebacks of all time. I mean, you always hear team of destiny, and I'm always of the belief that luck is the residue of design. You did something to make it happen, but man, they just seem to have a little pixie dust on them. And, in some ways I can't imagine them repeating because it's almost too good to be true. Like how could they possibly repeat even with, even with all those guys healthy and the league the way it is. But it was, it was something special, and it was great. It's funny because a lot of people were annoyed by the New York fans, and there were some extracurricular activities in the streets after that looked bad on the city. But man, it was so cool to see people like Walt Frazier, enjoy a championship again. Patrick Ewing, people that I'd, kind of grown up around the franchise with. I mean, this is like not for nothing, but when Frank Isola and I wrote this book about the Knicks, which I think only our moms bought, it was like we had a book party in Manhattan. And we invited the whole organization. We knew that we were pissed off at some of the things we wrote. Nobody was going to come, but two people showed up. Two people in the whole organization, Marv Albert and Walt Frazier. Like, oh my God, we were like Frank's family's from Long Island. I mean, they were like, oh my God, Walt's here, Clyde's here, and it was so like they were beyond the fact that they're famous stars and they'd sort of been. They're just as popular as Bird and Russell and some of the people in Boston, in New York. They were good people, and so it was really cool to see that happen, and it was an amazing season, and I'm glad they did it because oh my God, Wembanyama is going to win 10 in a row now. He's freaking so good.
Hey, Mike, you mentioned OG Anunoby's tip in Game 4 to complete that incredible comeback. Yeah. I'm just curious, in terms of either the greatest moment in Knicks history or maybe the history of Madison Square Garden, where does that single play rank?
I think it's got to, top 3, I guess anybody today would say one that saw it and was there. I got to think that people that actually, the Woody Allens, whoever has been around for 50 odd years, was at the Willis Reed game, and they saw him come out and he hit a couple shots. And people forget Walt Frazier had 36 and like 20 19. In that game or something. Yeah. It was insane. Like he had all these assists. But so I think that if it's not, it's got to be in the top 3. I mean, I covered a couple, I got there in 94 when Riley was sort of trying to knock off Jordan, and then Riley ends up leaving for the Heat, and Van Gundy takes it. So I covered all the Van Gundy years, and as the Knicks got older, they were still sort of thought of as a contender, and obviously that one run in '99 when they went to the finals, like the Larry Johnson shot. I mean, that's probably in the top, 5 to 10, but nothing like the ending of that game, and I still, this is the thing I marvel about, guys, because, I know you guys have seen a lot of people over the years, and you feel older as their kids get older. Well, when I was covering the Knicks in '99, Rick Brunson was like a knucklehead. He, Sprewell, and Camby hung out together. They got high. They went out a lot on the road. Of course, Sprewell's body could handle it. Rick's and Marcus's couldn't. But eventually, Sprewell and Camby became big parts, and Rick Brunson became at least a solid role player that, he sort of got other jobs because the coaches trusted him to run the offense. And you'd see guys playing on the side, like Patrick Ewing Jr. would be there, who ended up playing for Georgetown and a G League team. And Greg Anthony's son, I don't know if he was born yet.
But if you had told me all the kids that had ever played on the side while we're covering practice at the facility, and Rick Brunson's kid was going to be the greatest player in franchise history after Patrick Ewing, I would have been blown away. It just would have been blown away. And I still cannot get my hands around how amazing that guy is with the footwork. I mean, he's what is he, 6'1"? He has better footwork than most 7-footers ever did. And so I'm blown away by Jalen Brunson. I just think he's, he of all the players, I mean, as far as spectacular, no. But as far as a guy I would just want to see a night-to-night basis to see how hard he works and wins, it's amazing to me.
Yeah, if you don't respect Jalen Brunson, even as a person who doesn't root for the Knicks, there's something the matter with you. I mean, because he has earned everything he's gotten. But
if you don't respect Jalen Brunson, you're Becky Hammond.
or whoever the GM of the Mavericks was when they decided to let him go to New York.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Knicks fans, you touched on this in your earlier comment. They've always been passionate. They've always been very knowledgeable. They consider themselves sophisticated fans who think they've seen it all. But the way they reacted during the playoffs, particularly when opposing fans came to New York, as you kind of alluded to, made me feel like they really didn't know how to act like they'd been there before. Their collective heads seemed to be exploding on a regular basis. Sorry, World B, not you, but some of your fellow Knicks fans. I don't know. I didn't think the Knicks fans really came off as being particularly sophisticated with some of that stuff. Not that one bad apple spoils the whole bunch, Donny Osmond, but I'm curious what you think.
I think that you just dumped a reference on these guys that they don't even know. They don't even know who Donny Osmond is. Okay, that's sad, Bruce, and it just goes to show your age. And I think I might be able to take over 48 minutes after this is over, because this is but you're right. The fan. I don't know. I guess I was just watching when they went crazy, And yes, did I think that Chalamet got a little bit too much airtime, given that he's only been in the picture for, you were a kid 5 months ago, you write, you make a couple movies and all of a sudden you're their number one fan, like, screw you. All right. And whether you like Spike or not, it was kind of fun to see him, it was kind of fun to see him go nuts. And I was just, was it Marissa Hartgay was hugging Taylor Swift? I mean, Mariska Hartgay was, there is a sophistication. There is sort of an attitude. I was there when, he wasn't there. I don't know if they have season tickets anymore. I don't know what's going on, but Matthew Modine and his wife would go to the games. And he was like, they go to fundraisers and, we cover the player, go to a fundraiser, see the player. And Matthew Modine could talk about anything. He was great. And I'm trying to think of some of the other stars, but there were so many celebrities on Celebrity Row over the years that I didn't really.
Peter Boyle was there, correct?
What's that?
Peter Boyle, the late great Peter Boyle was there.
Late great Peter Boyle, a guy who hated me at the end. He was a great screenwriter, Bill Goldman, because he got caught up in the It was weird. All the writers took sides when Van Gundy, Grunfeld, and Dave Checketts were all battling it out in '99. And anyway, Bill Goldman would write columns in the Daily News. This is like the screenwriter for, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and the what is the one where I will kill your father, you tell me how to die, prepare to die. The Princess Bride. I mean, this guy was like, major Hollywood screenwriter, and he's like killing me in the Daily News. It was like, that's a fan. So I think that all those guys, all the people that didn't get to see it, Harvey Aridin of the New York Times, a colleague of mine, a guy Bruce knows from our interviews with him, he had written a book with Michelle. God, I can't remember her last name, but she was like this longtime fan. She'd gone through a divorce. She kept her season tickets, and she died, I don't know, a few years ago. And Harvey wrote a column about it. Wrote a book about him. And somewhere she was smiling. I mean, it was I didn't get into the annoying part of the New York fans. Let's be honest, they do know basketball a lot better than a lot of people. when I was covering the Knicks, I got a letter. It was like a little handwritten note from Mario Cuomo, and it was like, he goes, I like basketball, and I like good basketball. I like good writing, and you gave me both the other night. I'm like, I've kept that the rest of my life. The former mayor and governor of New York, like that was so cool. And so I think that, you grow up, you're sort of thrust into this Knick world, which I'm sure you were in some ways, Michael, at some, either your parents indoctrinated you or you grew up there or something, but like you're just into it, and you're just kind of like, you don't look at the fandom and whatnot. And you just hope that people's team wins sometimes. But it was funny, like all the years what I miss most about being a beat writer is going to the other cities, and we would give shit to the people in the all the people that were working the arenas. We'd go like, we'll see you guys next season. We're like, no, it's game 4. Game 6 is here. No, this series is over. We'll see you. And it was so fun to do that. And of course, the Knicks never closed out those series, so we'd have to go back, and the people that were running the elevators going, see, I told you the Cavs would get them or whatever. And I go, oh crap, you're right. The Knicks didn't do it for us.
All right. Let's go down the road from New York a piece, hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes, whatever, to Philadelphia, that wonderful city. LeBron James has decided to join a loaded Philadelphia team. Now, I've always been a LeBron guy. You know that. You guys all know that. But this move to me looked like an act of desperation, as King James was hoping to win another title or two and close the gap between himself and Michael Jordan. Mike, how do you feel about that? And is LeBron chasing a ghost he will never catch, even if he wins 7 chips?
Well, I still want to see the episode where you guys just go off on Brad Stevens and everybody for what happened to Jalen Brown. Can you hear me still, Bruce?
Yeah. Can you start again? You were having a little digital.
No, I was going to say, I'd love to still see the episode where you guys go off on Brad Stevens and the Celtics management for basically letting Jalen Brown find out that they were trying to move him, and also, trading him to not only a division rival, a conference rival, but a division rival. And I think some of your bitterness about King James, Bruce, is tied into that. Basically, that Boston is in trouble now, but
big trouble.
but yeah, like none of that would have happened if Jalen Brown weren't there. Like, I do believe LeBron when you talk about a guy that's looking at his future and thinking, okay, how can I win 1 or 2 more, at least get back to the finals. I'm thinking you're looking around, and like the first thing I thought is, how does he get out of the West? And that was going to be tough no matter who he went to. With Wembanyama, with the Thunder isn't done. They're the Nuggets could be healthy and have a turnaround year and try and get back there. So it was going to be brutal wherever LeBron went, unless he went to like But I thought the East now. You could get out of the Eastern Conference. I mean, not saying that the Knicks aren't going to be good next year. Not saying that the Celtics aren't going to be right in the mix. And maybe Indiana with Halliburton coming back and everything. And the Pistons are only getting smarter and wiser. But when I saw, you look at, they don't have a whole lot of depth right now. But God, just the top 5-6 players. Philly's, I would have to say Philly's odds on right there. I still, even though Cleveland didn't do much, I don't know what happened with Harden. Is Harden still there?
I don't think he's officially signed his deal
yet. But he's supposed to, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to. Yeah. So I don't think they're done. But I mean, I'd still if you were asking me, and it's crazy, like people are acting like, oh my God, the LeBron sweepstakes. He's 41. He's carbon dated. Like, how much can he actually give some team? But it's still LeBron James, and you got for whatever people think about him, the guy his basketball IQ is second to none. He knows what works as a team, and I think in his head, he's like, okay, I could even mentally help this team, and he'll be a little coach off the floor and on the floor a little bit. So I don't know. Can Ben Simmons stay healthy? Who knows? Can
Embiid.
Embiid.
Ben Simmons. Can Joel Embiid stay healthy? I don't know. Shoot, all the other pieces, are they going to fit? And are there is there going to be enough basketballs to go around? Tyrese Maxey needs the ball. Jalen Brown needs the ball. These aren't guys that just play off the ball all the time. But man, that's if that five gets clicking, I like them. I like them going to the finals. I don't know if I like them winning, but I like them going to the finals right now if they stay healthy.
Now, Mike, we've talked about the Knicks. We've now touched upon the Sixers. That's one of the three matchups on opening night on October 20th.
Yep.
We also have the Celtics Pistons opening night and Thunder Spurs. I'm curious which game you're looking forward to most on opening night.
Anything with the unicorn, the real unicorn. In it. Anything with Wembanyama in it. I just want. I want to see if Chet Holmgren is completely emotionally and physically emasculated for life after what happened to him in Game 7. Because I feel like at this point his confidence is so low that Victor Wembanyama could take his whole frame and put him through the basket. It would fit because he's so skinny.
Yeah.
I feel like he could get dunked through the back. I could feel like there could be violence happening to him. And I just hope that he's seen a good sports psychologist this summer and he comes back. And because like that to me is the big question. Like, did the Spurs just, because not that people thought that Oklahoma City was a budding dynasty, but they thought odds on favorite, they're probably going to win it again at least. And man, they just did not look ready for prime time when it came to that, when it came to Wembanyama and that team. And God, Castle and like all those guys are young and they're getting better. That's the thing that would scare me if I was a Steph Curry or a LeBron James or anybody. Like you can do all you can about father time with trainers and rest and load management, which always was dumb to me. Load management, like it sounds like something that you should do on the commode rather than on the bench of an NBA roster. But I will say this: I think those so many young players are getting better right now, and so that's probably the game. To give you a long answer, Ross, I think that's the game I would. That's the game. How about you guys? What do you want to see?
I think LeBron James at MSG. The fact that Jalen Brown's going to be a part of that game too. It's also banner night. I think it has all the makings to be legendary, but I do think there is a legitimate debate for, like you pointed out, the Chet Wemby matchup, because one, Wemby's just a unicorn, and two, what does Chet come with game one right out of the gates having to face the Spurs? Yeah.
And God, like if I was the Knicks, I'd be a little pissed about the league making Philly and LeBron my ring night team. Not that it's like not a marquee matchup that you wouldn't want to be a part of, but if there was any chance that you got beat on ring night, that would be that team is one of them.
Yeah. Now a quick follow-up for you here. I'm just curious. It sounds like you saw the schedule for opening night prior to me asking the question. And I got to ask you this, just being around the game for so long, what in the world is the NBA doing starting the Celtics at Pistons game in Detroit? I want to point out it's in Detroit, not Abu Dhabi. And this first game of the season starts at 2 Eastern time on a Tuesday. What's going on with that?
You know what that is? That's vengeance. Somehow Jalen Brown's agent got to the league office and said, we're going to give you the crappiest time imaginable for an opener. That is insane. I did not see that. That's crazy. And I live in Panama now. That's 1 p.m. in Panama. I'm not even doing anything, and I can't. I'm not going to see that. I probably won't see that game. Probably have to go fishing or at the beach. That's crazy.
Yeah, this isn't MLB opening day here. This isn't baseball. I don't know what we're trying to do here with this. So, if I'm Kate Cunningham, I'd talk to my agent. Do you not care about my Q rating whatsoever? Come on, that's nuts. It's nuts.
Hey, Mike, in terms of the role of being a sports writer, because of the impact of social media, has the ability for sports writers to establish a working relationship, or beat writers perhaps, to establish a working relationship with a player or coach? Has it become more difficult now, in your opinion, because of social media?
Yeah, good question, Michael. I think, everybody says, good old days, right? Even before I started covering the league, there were all these guys like Peter Vesey and Mark Heisler for the LA Times that used to cover the league on a regular basis. And all these guys could, talk to you about going on, flying commercial with the, I know people can't believe this now, but I think the 85-86 Celtics flew commercial. Like, think of that, one of the greatest teams of all time. And so Bob Ryan was on the flight with him. Peter May was on the flight with him. And so you couldn't help but run into whoever it was, Danny Ainge at the terminal gate, who forgot his ticket, or you'd be, in the little convenience store at the airport, buying a sour gummy worms thing, and you're next to somebody that's like one of the best coaches of all time. So that doesn't happen anymore. I think it's harder. Social media makes it harder because you got to have a take on everything. I think the biggest thing is the money difference, the wage gap. Not that there was equitable salaries at any point. Not that there was players were always rich. The sports writers were always, if you got to upper middle class in life, you were really happy. And there was a few like Mitch Albom and the Kornheiser Wilbons that would, push the envelope for rich. But you were always going to have less money, and you wouldn't be in the same social circles. But there was a thing like, when I got pretty good at waiting out other reporters. If I wanted to talk to Kobe Bryant about the fact that he was going to be the youngest all-star starter in the history of the NBA in, was it 97? He was barely 19. And to get out, all the other reporters leave, and I'm going, hey, is there any way I could talk to you about it? And he goes, I don't really have time going to my agent's office. Well, can you give me a ride? All right. So Kobe's, I'm in Kobe's car now. I've got a scene. I've got Kobe switching out his Jay-Z CD for the Spice Girls because he didn't want my New York Times sorry ass white ears to hear the N-word and stuff. I still laugh at it. And he's like, I really like the Spice Girls. I'm like, you don't like this. You just put this in because I'm in the car. And but you could never, it's so impossible to do that now, not because reporters aren't me. It's because there's layers of people to get through to a Kobe or whoever it is, a Wembanyama or a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm sure the Oklahoma City media has better access than some big cities, but even then, there's such a controlling factor, and so it's hard to establish those relationships. I always tried to get somebody out of the locker room if I could, just because you know how it is. Yeah, I don't know. It's like a girl you like walking up to you in high school and your friend, and you're like, oh crap, I gotta walk. I like her, but I'm not gonna. I don't want to show my friends that I like her, and so that's what it's like being a reporter in a locker room sometimes. And so to get past that awkwardness or that sort of you're not in the in crowd, you just freaking take a guy out to lunch or you meet him somewhere. I always found they go to a charitable event and you'll get a little release. And it'll say, hey, so-and-so, they're building a home for a family. And I go just so I could talk to the guy and get him outside the locker room. Those things are so hard to get. It's so hard to get any access to these guys unless you have a network partnership deal and you're Malika Andrews and you've already got everything worked out, and they say, okay, you're going to talk to the coaches at this time. You're going to interview them. Well, yeah, because it's in their contract. Anything above and beyond that it's really hard. And so, which is why God bless PR directors like Jeff Twiss of the Celtics, who still has a soft spot for all media. It doesn't matter what, you're the smallest paper in the in the Northeast or not. Raymond Ridder from the Golden State Warriors, that guy, man, he would to this day, I'll say, hey, is there any way you give me a number for Kevin Durant's agent? And he goes, no, I'll just give you Durant's number. I'm like, what? And he goes, no, I trust you. just text him, don't call him. And I'm like, all right. And that was a few years ago. But I guess what I'm saying is that those people are few and far between. And it's really hard to build up a relationship with a guy outside the locker room. And then there's all this coverage, like, God forbid if you write something critical, then you're like, on the outs with somebody. Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard. And social media, like you said, Michael, it expounds that. Like all of a sudden, you got to have a hot take, and somebody comes up to you and goes, "Yo, you wrote that bullshit about me." I'm like, what do you mean? It was a tweet. I just said you weren't, you weren't rebounding the ball. You weren't hitting the glass. You were caressing it. And he goes, yeah, that was fucked up. That was fucked. And I go, did you even see it? I wrote it while in game. No, my boy told me about it. Oh, well, okay. I can't win here. If your boy is critiquing my tweets, I'm done. So I guess that stuff happens all the time now, and it's hard to, it's almost like we're all become like the leagues and the network contracts and the players, agents, and the union are forcing us into this like soccer, like football Europe mode, where you just sit in the press box and just murder the coach and murder the players. And then you see them at a press conference later, and you can say whatever you want to them because fans just want you to kill them if they played badly.
Hey, in terms of on the court, who is the most enjoyable person you've covered in the NBA? Not necessarily the best, because we always have the debate on the GOAT or whatever. But who's the most enjoyable person you enjoy, were able to cover during your time in the NBA?
So many guys. I mean, Bruce Bowen, who my first little job at the Sanger Herald, 30 miles outside of Fresno, was a weekly newspaper. I went to his high school games, and I remember him. This is the worst part of West Fresno, and I'd be outside the locker room thinking, wow, this guy's good, but how do you get out of this neighborhood? And to see that guy, reject.
End up on 48 minutes.
Exactly. Rejected so many times, and still not only find a niche in the NBA, but end up being this world champion, this decent human being who, God forbid, loves Bruce Bernstein. And so all of a sudden you have this, people like that, like Roger Mason. Nobody would think of Roger Mason as like Garrett Temple. Like Garrett Temple tells me this story one day, and he goes, yeah, man, my dad, man, he was Collis. He broke the color barrier at LSU. I go, what? Your dad was the first black player at LSU? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, and he's friends with Britney Spears' dad. Yeah, we used to take Britney fishing. When it was like all this stuff, and then you hear and I call up his dad, and his dad yeah, I did that and I did this, and oh, by the way, there was this racist in the quad one day at LSU, and he just kept going off, and I shouted him down, and he goes, and you know who that motherfucker was? David Duke. I'm like, the future head of the Ku Klux Klan. I'm like, you couldn't make up stories like that. And so, Roger Mason was a guy just this, role-playing guard that could shoot and run offenses. But, I almost died once. My dog fell through the ice, and I fell through the ice, and a guy ended up helping pull me out, and I got the dog out. But anyway, I wrote about it, and Roger Mason came, only player that's ever come to me. He goes, dude, I read that story. Are you okay? That was I'm like, you read that story? And he goes, yeah. He goes, and so anytime you see somebody that gets you or has some empathy, I think those guys would be in my top three. Garrett Temple, Roger Mason, Bruce Bowen,
Jamal Crawford.
Yeah, Jamal Crawford. It's funny, I didn't cover as many games as his, but I got to know him at the end of his career pretty well. And he was another guy. He was just so honest and real, and you kind of rooted for him. I mean, shoot, Barkley. My God, Barkley. I don't know, Bruce, if you ever saw the Facebook post I had last year, but a real quick one, if we got a minute. Barkley shows up. About the guy here, a local parent in Panama, shows me a picture of him and Barkley, and I go, Julio, that's great. you go to the States? And he goes, no, he's here in Panama. I said, Barkley's here in Panama? So like I had this old number for him. Hadn't seen him in 5 years. Texted him. I said, Chuck, this is crazy. My wife got a job down here. I'm down here, but are you in Panama? And he's like, day later, what's up, brother? Yeah, I'm getting stem cells. Like, I guess he was getting some stem cell treatments on his thing. And he goes, and I go, look, I don't know what you're doing, but like, it would be great if my kid could go by the hotel for it. I don't hear from him 3 days. I'm thinking, he probably took off. No big deal. I'm driving to the local Costco. It's called Price Mart here. Literally on the way, I get the phone call on a Friday night. It's Barkley. And he goes, what are you doing, man? Show up at the sports bar. Bring your kid. I'm like, what? And like, he didn't have to do that. And like, I show up at the frickin', like I'd like to say I went in the minivan and got the, Costco-sized box of Cocoa Puffs for the kids. Screw that. I did a Yui in the freeway. Told my son who was on Minecraft, Oliver, do you want to go see Charles Barkley? His jaw drops. We end up at the bar. We walk in. Barkley sees him wearing a Curtis Stroud jersey. He goes, that motherfucker cost me money last week. Your boy on that. And like, he heard more F-bombs than he's ever heard in his life. And there was a guy there. Well, I can't. Should I tell this story? Nah, I shouldn't tell this story. It's a bird story. It's a good one. I don't think it's that bad. I think it'll be fine.
So, go, dish.
So this guy's there. Kevin Pritchard was there, the GM of the Pacers, who Bird had hired years ago for the Pacers. Kevin Pritchard, because I guess he's the one who'd introduced Barkley to the stem cell guy in Panama. And they're at the sports bar, and he's with this other guy, Danny Delmonico or something. He's a hotshot business guy. One of those guys that gets all the stuff for the players' wives and their moms and stuff and brings them tickets. Just kind of like one of these guys. He's got money. He's got nothing to do. He helps out the organization. So apparently Bird's like retiring from the Pacers. He's getting out, and he's like, and he goes, hey, I want to do something for you. I want to do something for you, Danny. And he's like, Birdie, you don't have to do anything, man. You've done everything. No. He goes, my dad is the biggest fan. He's 85. Can you show up at his birthday party at whatever it is, St. Elmo's in Indianapolis? And he goes, all right, I'll do it. And so Danny Monty goes, this is the video. You've never seen a Bird. And like me and Oliver, my son, 15-year-old son, get around his phone. And it's all of a sudden this 85-year-old guy like, hey, and Bird comes into the picture. And he goes, I just want to tell you happy birthday, your son. And the guy's like he's about to have a heart attack. And then the best part, Bird reaches into his pocket and he goes, I just want to tell you happy birthday, sir. And he gives him his 81 championship ring. Gives the 85-year-old guy his 81 champ. And the guy's like, I swear to God, I thought he had a heart attack. And then Danny Delmonico guy tells this story about how he goes, like, it was like the watch in Pulp Fiction that Christopher Walken was talking about, and he walked around with that watch. And he's like, and my father wore that goddamn ring until the day he died. And we're like, yeah. And then he goes, and then he gave it to me. And it's on his finger, and in the bar in Panama, and we're going, "Holy shit, that's Bird's ring."
That's great.
He didn't want me to write that story, but I figure he'll be okay if I tell it on the podcast.
Well, I'll make sure to highlight that in our social media promo too.
I mean, it was just such a great story. It was like a night with Barkley. Chuck, you never know what you're going to get. And it's like, and he looks at my son at the end. Chuck does, and he goes, Oliver. He goes, two things. Work on your left hand. If you become ambidextrous, if you use your left hand as well, you will separate yourself from every other player. And two, hit the books. Hit the guy. If I hear that you're not hitting the books, I will beat your ass. No, I'll beat your father's ass. And like my son is just like the God was speaking to him. It was freaking great. I'm like, I could tell him to go to school all I want. When Barkley does it, he actually shows up for school.
Okay, Mike. You've given us a nice little warm-up over these first 39 minutes, but now it's time to get to the essence of Mike Wise with this next question.
All right, go for it.
Sophie Cunningham has made a lot of enemies in the WNBA because of her stance on transgender females competing against natural-born females. I don't think she expects transgender females to be on WNBA rosters, but when it comes to the middle school, the high school, the college sports, is she so wrong to take the position that she's taken?
Well, if she had just said, I don't want to see boys past puberty playing against girls, and because and I would have said, well, okay, more than 80% of America. No, I don't want that. I don't think anybody wants, and not anybody I know wants to see guys. But the idea that you're protecting girls in the locker room, like God forbid, like it plays into every bad trans stereotype, like the guys in there trying to check you out, or it's just to me, like when another coach wears trans kids belong, I think what she's saying there is basically like, you can say what you want about not wanting biological men to play against women, but it's another thing to say, almost like you're deviant if you are. It's like an undercurrent of how screwed up are you if you're even like this. And that's the part of that's the part of sort of, and God made man and God made women, and I hope that I meet a man that, and like, okay, thanks. Like it's like something. What do they say? Hate the sin, love the sinner, hate the sin. You know what, Sophie? I'm sorry. Love the bigot, hate the bigotry. That's just bigotry to me. When you go that far, and that's a lot of people. And if it was an issue, like it's a thing that they never thought to discuss in this collective bargaining agreement. There will never be a transgender man in the WNBA. There's never been a transgender woman in all of U.S. professional sports ever. Like not in all of U.S. women's professional sports. There's never been a guy that is actually suited up with, his genitals being different from the people above him. That's never happened. Have people talked about it? Yeah. They've got rules now. The Supreme Court has basically held up every state ban. Do I care if a trans kid swims against my kid at 8 years old? No, because girls' times are often better at that age. When they go through puberty and they get, and the biological changes happen, no, you don't compete against girls. But that's not what was said. It was sort of like, it was like this, I don't know, it just went off, they went off the rails on this trans issue, and like all of a sudden it became like an issue, and it's a non-issue.
Do you think that some of the animosity she gets from other WNBA players is partly due to her very public actions as Caitlin Clark's protector?
Yeah, well, I did. There's so much. The WNBA is like a prism for every freaking culture war now. Race, sexual orientation, gender. I think all that stuff, like for better or worse, like Indiana's thought is MAGA America's team because they have a white pigtail. Is that fair? Probably not, because Kelsey Washington's black, Alyssa Boston's black. Like some of the best players on their team are black, but for some reason, because she's outspoken, she gets into it. She gets clotheslined like Rambis did in the '84 finals. Although people in Boston still say that was a good play by McHale. But the, because she's all in it and there's all this subtext, to me, it's like, it's wild. Like Caitlin Clark is somehow like a proxy for white racist America. And I think that's messed up on so many levels, because she's a great player and she's a jerk. Okay. So like, what great players aren't a little bit of a jerk? I don't know. I have a lot of hard time. The whole thing to me is, and I know it sounds Pollyannish, but it's like they're having, to me, one of the greatest seasons that they've ever had in terms of, and I guess you could go to, like, Mark Cuban used to tell me this when I would do stories about like the malice of the palace is going to ruin the NBA. The NBA is too hip hop, basically too black, too many cornrows. Like, people are talking about it. That's what you forget. People are talking about it at the water cooler. Like, did anybody talk about a WNBA game 5 years ago when they were on their lunch break? Nobody did. Now everybody is, for whatever reason.
Yeah, pretty crazy there. Now, moving on from the WNBA to the NBA here, it was reported actually just earlier today that the NBA has found no evidence that Ballmer funneled money to Kawhi Leonard via sponsors to circumvent the salary cap. But the NBA is more focused now on whether the team's introduction of Kawhi to team sponsors constitutes a violation in the league's rules prohibiting salary cap circumvention. So clearly it seems to be there was some wrongdoing. They're willing to kind of note that, but to what extent? I'm just curious to kind of get your thoughts on this very unique league investigation, and even the fact that the Kawhi Leonard trade has been held up with Toronto.
Well, I don't want Pablo Torre to give back his Pulitzer Prize. That would be awful. but he was wasn't he pretty clear that there was connections in all his reporting?
Yep.
I mean, that's what I remember. I don't know all of it, but there was a pretty clear timeline, and he made it pretty clear that there was a connection. And so look. The bottom line is there was some kind of wrongdoing. I don't know how much it was. If Ballmer doesn't have that kind of liability, I don't see why that trade wouldn't go through. And it's not that it wasn't about nothing, because it's a huge thing. If owners can do that and find little tiny loopholes and ways to enable their players to get paid even more millions to recruit them in free agency, that's messed up. They got to take some action. Totally. But there was one part of it that never made sense to me all along, and that was Steve Ballmer is, if not one of the richest people in the world, one of the richest people in America. And like, why would you put yourself, giving yourself this kind of exposure legally and everything, if you have that kind of money already? And like, whether the Clippers win a championship or not, you're going to be well off in life. Like, why would you sacrifice it all for something as stupid as that? So that was always my question all along. But I don't want to disparage anybody's reporting, but we may have gotten ahead of the game there a little bit. I don't know, Bruce. What are you finding out as you Google this story?
It's, to me, the thing that bothers me the most about it is that all of these players that were traded in that deal, their lives are all in limbo now.
Good point.
Because where's Ingram going to play? Where is Grady Dick going to play? Where is Kawhi going to play? They got families. You're talking Toronto to LA. Could you get more distance apart between? So that is what bothers me about the whole thing, is that their lives are their collateral damage in this whole thing, and it's not fair to them and their families and the Raptors, quite honestly.
Maybe this story came out, and I'm sure the guys at ESPN who Bruce and I worked with have done their due diligence. I believe it's Don Van Natta, Ramona Shelburne, and is it Baxter Holmes who have reported this story. Those are three of the best reporters they have. Baxter broke the story about the Phoenix owner, Robert
Sarver.
Yeah, Sarver. So I would think that there is a reason this story's coming out now, and part of it is maybe they want to facilitate these trades. Maybe they want to do this before the training camps open. So that's just a thought off the top of the head. I still want to know, I still think there's a good story in what was Kawhi's uncle's name?
Uncle Dennis, I think.
Yeah, Uncle Dennis. Uncle Dennis just seems like a character to me. I want to know what Uncle Dennis did. He just seems like he seems like he's not above board, and I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Why didn't Ballmer just write a check to Uncle Dennis? No salary cap implications there. Right. Say, here's $20 million. You keep $1.5 million and give the other $18.5 million to Kawhi as a present from his uncle.
I mean, this is what people do in tax write-offs all the time. You give money to somebody that is going to either die in a few years, or they're not going to get it for 40 years, and you just get rid of your money that way, and you don't have to pay taxes on it. You would think a guy with that wealth and that kind of liability would have some real smart people, money people working for him, and but I don't know. I would.
All right. Final question here, because we're sticking with the drama in LA basketball theme. Okay. 5 of the 6 Buss family members have voted to sell off the remaining 17.8% ownership share to Josh Kushner and Robert Geiger. Jeanie is the one holdout voting against it, and she is now pursuing legal action to prevent it, since she will lose her title of governor and all of the trappings that go with it. You know Jeanie pretty well, and she was a guest on our podcast a couple times back in the good old days at
Guys,
Pure Hoops. What's your take? What's your take on this whole thing? Is Ross, Jeanie the good guy or the bad guy?
Ross, Michael, Jeanie was awesome when she came on our podcast. It was like, and I'm not saying that just because, like, she got emotional. She had come on right after Kobe, like less than a year after Kobe and David Stern had died, and she was very close to David Stern. And it was right after the Lakers had won in the bubble, and LeBron, and so it was all these mixed emotions. And her mother had died too in that time. And so, at any rate, as filthy rich people go, I really have a soft spot in my heart for her. And look, what's her book called? The Laker Girl. Like, this has been her whole life. This is her identity. Not only does she love the team, she loves being part of the team. And so, bad guy, good guy. I guess at some point, if you got other people in the family that want to do it, and maybe they do, maybe the new owners even, Kushner and Iger, want to move on from the Buss family altogether. But I never, imagine Jeanie Buss not being a part of the Lakers. I can't just see her sitting courtside and going, "Oh, that was my team." I feel like she would always have some kind of say in something. And so, yeah, I'm biased, but I kind of, and I believe she sued a couple of her brothers before. I know Jimmy, when the dad died and they weren't saying that she was going to be the governor, and she basically won. And so, she's got some legal precedent already. So who knows? Who knows? All good things come to an end, but man, I don't know. I still like Jeanie Buss on the sideline, being a fan of the Lakers and being a part of them in some shape or form. It really, you talk about, like, what was it? Someone wrote once, Bill Veeck, the old baseball guy. They said, Bill Veeck died. He is survived by baseball. I feel like Jeanie Buss's obituary is like, Jeanie Buss died. She is survived by the Lakers. That's her life, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, listen, thank you so much for spending 48 minutes and a couple minutes of overtime with us as well on this show. We really enjoyed having you. You're always been a great storyteller. We'd love to have you come back again one of these days if you can fit us into your very busy schedule while you're in Central America. But thank you so much for your friendship, for your knowledge, and just, for being a friend of the show. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You guys are great. Thank you, Ross. Michael, you as you know, you hooked up with a good guy. I'm a little hurt that you guys are younger and better looking and have more going on for you right now in your lives. Nonetheless, I'll get over it, and you guys will have a great show going forward.
I think once you close down your laptop here tonight and our end of the show, you need to go to the front door, see if your magic shoes arrived. They might do that.
Yeah, right. Like talk about in the mail, man.
You didn't have a tracking number back then? You couldn't track that?
But funny thing, I called him and how about this? I called up the phone book. This is 1980. I went to the phone book and there was an Irvin Johnson in Culver City. I called the number. I was so freaking industrious, even at 16 years old. And it was right after they won their first title, and I was like, and I didn't really call him to see the shoes. I was just like, oh, Magic remembered me. And I go, is Irvin there? And he goes, yeah, hold on. Yeah. And who's this? Oh, this is Mike, a guy that he, all right. And then guy comes in. No, he's not here. Click.
That's great.
But it was cool. I think I actually got the right house.
That's awesome. Well, Mike, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for taking the time out of your night to hang out with us and share some of your knowledge and stories. We've really appreciated it, and I know our listeners will too. So
good talking to both of you, Michael. Just for you, go New York, go!
Never gets old.
And with that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everybody.
Excellent.